Oh no, this place is scary. Hello, it's Gary to you, and welcome back to Let's Play Tomb Raider. It only took a majority of Let's Play to get used to the fact that we're only saying Tomb Raider, nothing else, because this game has no subtitle, because this is the first game in the series and didn't need one. In the previous episode, we played through the Atlantis mines and began exploring this mysterious place and got all our weapons back. And in today's video... Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is my absolute least favorite level in the entire game. It is by far the most difficult one. It has the most cheap traps in the entire game. I'm not a big fan of this one, so you're probably going to hear me complain a lot. Do I know how annoyed I got with this level? I gave up on doing live commentary because I was getting so mad at the game that I decided, you know what, screw it, we're just going to do post-commentary instead. When you get to that point, you know I'm not having a good run of a level. But none of that matters right now, because now we're playing through the magical land of post-commentary where I can pretend that I somewhat like this level. Except I don't, because the level sucks. So, this level, one thing that I'll say right now is that it's probably going to be a good idea to try to listen with headphones if you can, because a lot of the traps you'll see in this level and the next one are also going to be a lot out of like audio cues and things like that. That was also the same case with Nutless Minds as well, but it's more so going to be a common thing going forward. And also, I must apologize, because I'm going to try my best to do color correction in this area, but I don't know what it was with this specific spot, but my capture card adapter was having a really hard time getting the brightness of this area just right. So, it's going to appear super dark. I apologize for that. There's really not that much more I can do beyond what's being displayed in the video. It's like, yeah, I'd had problems with this before, but even with something as dark as Thor's room in St. Francis Folly, it was still running somewhat fine. But for whatever reason about this area, it was having a hard time with it. I think it's not that much of a problem with anything else going forward, but it definitely hit it hard in this space, and that wasn't a very pleasant experience at all. But with all that horrible stuff out of the way, now we can move onwards. Yay! And if I cared about getting all the kill counts in these levels, we'd be facing all those Atlantean soldiers, but I don't feel like it. Also, yeah, they're not cat mummies anymore, because in this area, even though they have the same exact sound effects and the same character model and things like that, they're not cat mummies. These ones are Atlantean soldiers. So yay, we have canonical names for these things. And our first secret is going to be located over here. So drop off at the bridge down there, and claim your sweet, sweet reward. Shut up, Atlantean soldier. I had a worse day than you. So, yeah, beyond this point, the game is not going to be holding back anymore. It's going to be throwing us a bunch of tough enemies and a lot of cheap traps and things like that. So you definitely want to keep a sharp eye. This area right here, this room was kind of the breaking point in me deciding to say, screw it, we're just doing this in post-commentary instead. Because this one room, I don't know what my luck was, but this one room took me an hour to get through. I'm not exaggerating. I timed it. It took a stupid hour to get through here. Because it was either, for whatever reason, Laura would fall off the edge and fall in the magma, or one of the flying guys would come up out of nowhere and knock her off the ledge. But the big thing, trying to jump onto that one ledge, no matter where I was positioned, she always seemed to bump against the wall, no matter where I was standing, no matter what I was doing, even if it was something that was working before. And another thing that was also my fault, that was really dumb in hindsight, was that I was trying to activate the egg and then backtrack to the other area so we'd have a larger space to fight on. But doing that, for whatever reason, Laura just refused to grab onto the ledge going backwards, going back to the other platform. It was really obnoxious to deal with. But we made it through. And at the point we were still doing live commentary, this right here, like I was talking about how this save crystal was like the most glorious save crystal in the history of anything ever, and it's gonna be our best friend forever and stuff like that. So that was a fun time. Around this point as well, there's also something else I was thinking about. So those save crystals, they were making me think of the gems in Spyro the Dragon, and how I always thought that they'd make like the most juiciest gusher candies ever. And that kind of led me to an idea. What if they had like an entire line of candy that just looked like video game objects? They were like gusher candies. So you'd have a candy that looked like a Spyro the Dragon gem. You'd have one that looked like a Save Crystal from Tomb Raider. You could have the Zelda's Triforce. You can have Mr. Saturn from Earthbound, a Pokeball, just all that fun stuff. Can you imagine how awesome that candy line would be? That would be like the greatest thing in the world. So if anybody out there wants to make $1 billion, feel free to use that idea. But we can now see that we're on the edge of the pyramid over there. So that's quite fancy indeed. Also, yeah, there's a boulder over there, and there's a spike trap right there. Not a very pleasant combination. But what is a pleasant combination is the fact that if we were to go up this area, this is going to be a pathway towards a secret. So we want to head over on that cliff up there. That's going to be the general direction we'll be wanting to go. Was trying to pad out my commentary right there because I was taking past a gator a little bit longer to get over there than I thought he would. Yay! Blake Airdus talk about themselves in third person. And we get a lunchbox. I know I've said that like pretty much every time we picked up one of the meta packs in this game, but it does genuinely look like a lunchbox. If they cared about Tomb Raider enough to do more merchandise for it, they could totally make $1 billion by selling lunchboxes that look like meta packs. I'm just saying. Crystal Dynamics, if you ever find yourselves in a tight financial situation, just make Tomb Raider lunchboxes. Like, how hard can that possibly be? That's like the easiest thing in the world. Although it seems like Tomb Raider might not be in the best financial situation in the world right now because, like, I'm sorry, it's kind of making me upset thinking about this, but this is like actually what happened. Square Enix, they were the ones who owned the Tomb Raider license, who owned the Tomb Raider franchise for a little while, and they were the ones who would go on to publish the original, like the more recent Tomb Raider reboot games and things like that. So those games were pretty financially successful. They didn't sell as well as Square Enix would have liked because Square Enix has a weird history, track record of expecting too much sales and things like that. And of course, with the reboot trilogy being super high budget games and things like that, they were kind of needing them to sell a lot to be able to make a good profit. But with all that in mind, it was still pretty successful. Do you want to know how Square Enix decided to celebrate all that? They decided, you know what? Tomb Raider is awesome and all, but no. NFTs. That is what we want with our life. That is going to be the most glorious thing in the world that we've decided, you know what? We're going to invest everything into this newly fancy NFT. Now, how can we afford it? I know. Let's sell Tomb Raider. You know, one of the most beloved Western games of all time. Let's sell that franchise off so that we can make NFTs. Yay! We love those things. Like, I swear, when I've read that, that was probably the most furious I'd been at gaming news in a very long time. Because, like, in what world does that make sense? Because NFTs have been around long enough to be able to justify any kind of investment towards it, really. Nobody likes them. They're dumb. They're stupid. But you sell off one of the most beloved gaming franchises of all time that was doing very well for you to invest in a stupid NFT. I just don't get it. Square Enix has done a lot of dumb things in the years, but that's probably gotta be the stupidest thing that I'd ever seen them do. Hopefully the future is going to be bright for Tomb Raider going forward. We don't know much about what the next game is going to be like at this point in time. It sounds like one of the big goals they're trying to do is bridge the timelines and like have a better connection between the reboot games and the classic games. So what I'm hoping they do, I'm really hoping what they do is that they make a game that where the story is kind of in between Shadow of the Tomb Raider and this one, because that's kind of what it sounds like they're trying to accomplish with the new game. And I really hope they do that because I really want to see classic Laura back. Because here's the thing, I'm not like one of those Tomb Raider fans who are like, oh, classic Laura is the only Tomb Raider, everybody else is just a copycat, like, the reboot Laura isn't real Laura or anything like that. I'm not like that. Like, even if I do prefer Legend Laura, the thing about that is that they're all Lara Croft. It's just different interpretations of the character. It's like Link from The Legend of Zelda. Like, most Links have the same similar characteristics and things like that, but they're all very different. Toon Link is very childish. Breath of the Wild is very gluttony. Just all that fun stuff. So it's not really fair to say that even if that like because the Tomb Raider reboot Laura is like so different from the original that she's basically an entirely different character. I don't really think it's really all that fair to say that. So with that in mind, I do hope that the next game has a Lara Croft that's a little bit closer to the original games. Then that being said, if she is more similar to the reboot games, I'll still be fine with that because reboot Laura is still pretty awesome. Because, like, honestly, how can anybody look at the reboot games and not think Lara Croft is a badass in them? Because she does a lot of really cool stuff. My favorite moment in Tomb Raider 2013 is easily the radio tower segment. That area is nerve-wracking as hell. Because the tower that you climb up gets progressively thinner as you go across the area. You can tell just how high it gets up there and how freezing it is. That entire area is just so nerve-wracking. It's so epic. That's one thing that the reboot games really do well. They just have like a really grand epic scale. And just, man, like just talking about it just makes me want to repeat them again. And that's something that I don't really find myself in the mood for that often because I do love Tomb Raider. I don't think 2013 was the best direction the series could have gone, but I definitely have warmed up to it a lot in more recent years compared to how I used to feel about the games. Like, even if I do still believe that the Legend Trilogy is, like, much better and things like that, the reboot games definitely do have a place with Tomb Raider fans, and I will definitely appreciate the fact that it did introduce a new generation of Tomb Raider fans. It's like Breath of the Wild, where a lot of people will say that Breath of the Wild is so different from the other Zelda games that you probably can't even really consider it a real Zelda game or anything like that. I strongly disagree with that. My belief is that even if you are a fan of just one game in this series, you do have the right to call yourself a fan. Because even if that one game is super different, you still have an appreciation enough for the series to try out the game in the first place. So, like, even if, let's say, Tomb Raider Game Boy was the only game you'd ever play in the series, you still have the right to call yourself a Tomb Raider fan. Well, that was a long tangent that went on for a while. We're going back to the game real quick. Coming up over this area is something, a detail that's probably worth mentioning. So we see all those eggs up there. And an interesting detail about them is that they have a bit of an obvious tell for which ones are going to hatch. So there are the tendrils on the side of the eggs. The ones that are stationary, those are the ones that won't be moving. But the tendrils will start moving back and forth, like moving up and down, things like that. You'll see just a little bit up there on that one. But if the tendrils start moving, that egg is going to hatch. This is a great way to be able to tell which ones are going to try to attack you and things like that. Because, yeah, it can be a little bit scary when they suddenly hatch and you don't know why. That's kind of like one big trope in the horror genre is that most jump scares have like some kind of tell that you can look out for to know which ones are going to be coming and things like that. It's like Five Nights at Freddy's, how pretty much every animatronic in those games has like some kind of obvious tell for when the jump scare is going to be happening. You just have to play around the games to be able to figure it out. Like Bonnie and Chica and things like that. The doors will jam if they're about to come by and things like that. This area right here is pretty cool. So what you gotta do right here, you gotta move the block out of the way and eventually move it in the path of the boulder. So we gotta move it over there. And eventually we'll be able to do more stuff. What exactly is supposed to be the design for those blocks, by the way? Because, like, they kind of look like they could be rib cages. I don't know what they're supposed to be. It always freaked me out. Not freaked me out. It always confused me what they're supposed to be. What does freak me out are these stupid walls here. I don't like the muscle look. It's very gross. I think the mindset they're going with is that the pyramid itself is supposed to be alive in some form. But that right there, that's the reason why we don't want to do the block. We wanted it out of the way so that the boulder wouldn't squish us trying to get through the door. Although it is possible to sequence break through that area because this game kind of has a couple bugs with it when it comes to being able to go through all that kind of fun stuff because, yeah, the game definitely can be a little bit buggy when it comes to gaps like that. There's a couple of glitches that we haven't talked about before. We talked about the corner bug before, but there's also a couple other ones where they're noteworthy and things like that. I don't remember the name of this glitch, but there's one where if you're like on a slope or something like that, and you're sliding around and stuff, it can like teleport you upwards and things like that. Think of it like Tears of the Kingdom's Ascend ability, but it's a glitch, and it had happened like 20 years before. That's literally what I thought when I first saw that Tears of the Kingdom gameplay trailer, because they recently did like a 10-minute gameplay thing for Tears of the Kingdom. And when that was going on, and they showed off the ability to the Ascend ability, where you can launch yourself to the ceiling and then appear on the top of a cliff or something like that. When I saw that, my first thought was, wow, they turned the corner bug from Tomb Raider into a Zelda mechanic. That was literally my first thought saying that. It was so good. Well, now we can head over here and activate the switch. Pull the switch. 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 Do not yell at me. Please pull the switch. Why does he get to pull the switch? Stop, you can both pull the switch. I didn't like that movie, but that quote was in like pretty much every TV spot for the movie Igor. Like, I didn't like that movie when I saw it, but that line always makes me laugh whenever I think about it. And these stupid choppers, I don't like their sound effects. They're still a cool trap and all, but their sound effect is super nerve-wracking, and I really don't like how they introduced them earlier in the game, but we've ranted about that before plenty of times already. Alrighty then. Let's move onwards and continue fulfilling our destiny. Aw, it's a baby lunchbox. That made me think of the trailer from Elemental. It's showing the baby fire, and it's got like a... Crap, I can't remember what it's called. It was like some kind of gasoline or something like that that they were feeding the baby fire, like a baby bottle or something like that. It was like one of the cutest things ever. And man, that movie just looks so good. I'm really excited for Elemental. It's gonna be a good year for movies in general because we got that one, we got the Super Mario Bros. Movie coming up pretty soon. It's gonna be a good time for movies.